Hello, everybody. My name is Robyn, and this is David. And today we're going to be answering your YouTube questions. We've been getting a lot of YouTube questions, and we thought it would be fun to do a live Q&A. Well, not live, but a Q&A.
Live right now. It's live right now.
If you like this video, make sure you like it, and then also hit the bell notifications.
Yes.
And ask us your questions down below.
We will love to answer those questions.
Yeah, because I mean, if people like this video, we can do a part 2, and we can have more questions. Yeah, so we're excited. I'm
going to say up front, I have not been shown these questions in advance, so this could go off the rails real quick.
It could go off the rails. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Numero uno. The first question. So this question is asking, what about someone who was injured 10 years ago, but didn't know about CPP disability until now?
So they found out about CPP now, but they went off work 10 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So CPP is unique in that it does allow people to make what are called late applications. So as long as you can prove that, let's start off here. So first of all, this person would only be able to make a claim if 10 years ago when they went off work, they had worked in the years leading up to that point. Because CPP is only ever available to people who have worked, okay? It's not available to everyone. You have to have worked and paid in 4 of 6 years leading up to the time, basically when you go off work for disability. So first of all, I would want to know for that person, were you working back then, and worked for a number of years leading up to it? If the answer is yes, okay, then there's a chance. So you can make a late application. And what you need to show is that when your disability started, and when we say started, we mean the point where your disability made you incapable of working on a regular basis. Whenever that point happened, you would have to show that at that time you were still covered with your CPP coverage. Okay. CPP coverage for disability doesn't continue on. It only, once you stop working, it might continue another 2 years maximum after you stop work. And then after that, you no longer, if you become disabled after that, it won't work. So if that person can go back in time and prove that their disability started within their CPP coverage period, then in theory, they could have a chance. And we have won cases going back that far. To win a case going back that far is extremely hard because you have to prove the disability back then. So if you don't have medical records or other, like the case that we won, the person had a workers' comp file back then. So that was really what saved the day. So unless you have these things where there's records from back in the time with saying what the disability was, then you're not going to win. It's going to be impossible. But if you've got the medical records and those records talk about your disability and you can establish your disability through those old records, then you can win. What you can't have is a doctor now saying, I think they probably were disabled back then 10 years ago, but I wasn't their doctor. Not going to work.
Next. Oh, it was our first, our hate comment. Sorry. I thought it was funny.
Well, read it. If it's PG-13, read it out and I can respond to it.
It is quite funny. It was funny mostly because somebody came to our defense right under it. It was really funny. Yeah. So this person says, just babbling on really not much to say. 3 of us still in the dark as to what, if anything, significant to get out of this. Mainly just boring.
Okay, what video was that?
I have no idea. I don't remember. I think I'll have to go look it up. And then somebody said, maybe you could ask nicely and not act like an entitled individual.
Honestly, I think this one is with the video that says CPP disability and the disability tax credit, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
So that person didn't like that video. Boring. That's fair criticism, man. I will say that I can be boring. So if just to restate, so CPP disability and the disability tax credit, that's what they said didn't get anything out of it. So I would just say the point of that video and what we would want to say about that is you can get both of these things, disability tax credit, CPP disability, are very different things. However, the qualifying for them is very different as well. So if you get one, it doesn't mean you'll get the other. For example, you can get the disability tax credit if you've never worked. Now, you wouldn't be able to claim it yourself, most likely, but your family member or someone else could. CPP, you have to have worked and qualify that way. They don't write each other off. So the disability tax credit, if you get that benefit, you get to keep whatever it is, plus you get to keep the full CPP. So these two work together. And it's normally, if you're getting the CPP disability, you would want to apply for the disability tax credit because CPP disability is still a taxable income. And while many people if you're only getting CPP, your income is likely below the level where you're going to get taxed. You still might, especially if you're in a family household, and there's, I'm not a tax expert, but if you get the CPP disability tax credit, then you for sure won't be taxed on your CPP disability. Sometimes people are taxed because they get other income from other sources, like other pensions and things like that. So when you add the pension and the CPP, then that can put you into a taxable bracket. But if you get the tax credit, then it takes away, any taxes that you would owe, and you'd be getting them back as a refund, or you wouldn't even have to pay them in anyway. So look, I do apologize to people. I don't mind a troll comment or a criticism. So we are going to try to keep improving the videos. So that's completely fine that person said that. It's actually kind of funny.
I thought it was funny.
I kind of like it. My daughter would like that one. She'd be like, plus that. I keep telling her, tell all your friends, man, your stepfather's got a YouTube channel. She goes, it's boring. Nobody wants that. You're going to get no followers. That's what she keeps telling me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're probably right.
We have a few. Okay.
It's
so
niche.
Our next question, does the tax credit reduce your taxes by that amount or reduces your income by that amount? So I'm guessing this comment was on the disability tax credit video.
Tax credit. Yeah. So disability tax credit, it reduces your taxable income. So it's really both. The answer is both. So what it means is if you do your taxes and at the end it says you owe, $5,000 in taxes. If you then apply the disability tax credit, it can wipe that out, right? It just takes away taxes that you owe. It doesn't give you, so if you don't owe any taxes, they won't send you any money in the mail, right? It only is a benefit to you if you owe taxes, and it just takes away taxes that you owe. And if you've already paid those taxes, you get a refund back, right? So it might be that you get the disability tax credit if you haven't paid in the taxes because you're going to owe them. Well, you would no longer owe them. So it's like getting money because you don't have to pay anything. If you've paid in the money already to Revenue Canada and they assess it and you're owed a refund, then that's when you can get money back. But I'm not sure if that answers the question, but it's a tax refund or a tax credit so that you don't have to pay. So you either save money because you don't have to pay, or you get money back. You get a refund back if you've overpaid based on what's assessed.
Okay, so this one's a bit more of a loaded question. Maybe I think we have a video on this already. So can you talk about qualifying for contributions under the late application provision?
All right, so there's two things here. There's CPP contributions, and then there's the late application provision. So let's look at contributions first. Your contributions are what they are. They exist. So you can go into your My Service Canada account online, and we're going to be doing a video on that, actually. Robyn's being the guinea pig. You can go in there and print it off. There's a thing when you log into your My Service Canada account, you click on CPP. There's a thing called contributions. What is it actually called? It's called statement of contributions. So you print off your statement of contributions, and it will show you your contributions year by year, and it will tell you in each of those years where you had some CPP contributions, if there was enough to count as a qualifying year, okay? So it's not enough that you've paid into CPP. You have to have paid in enough to make it a qualifying year. So setting everything else aside, it's an independent thing to go and get that and take a look at it. And then once you see that sheet, you will know the last time when you would meet the definition of having 4 of 6 years of contributions. And that is your window in which you can get CPP disability. Now, the second part of this is the late application. And we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but you could make a late application as long as the late application would result in your disability onset being within that contribution period. So you can't go back and change your contribution period. It is what it is. Your disabilities, you're going to either be able to prove that your disability started during that contribution period. And by started, I mean like it became to the point where you could no longer work. It doesn't mean when it actually just started. It means when you could no longer work because of disability. You'll have to prove that it started in that contribution window that already exists. That's why these late application CPP disability claims are complicated, and I advise everyone to get a good lawyer, law firm, or representative to help you with this type of claim. It is too complicated for most people to wrap their head around. Not that people aren't intelligent and can figure things out. It's just, if you haven't worked on a lot of these, it's very easy to make mistakes with it in terms of you have to prove yourself in a certain window, and you have to get the evidence in that window of time. And that is where people just don't do it. They focus too much on the here and now. The doctors don't really understand it, and you will lose on a technicality.
Okay. What do you do if you have two issues that you're applying for CPP? One is severe depression that's been going on since 2005, and the second is fibromyalgia that's been going on for 3 years and doesn't seem to be getting better. I'm taking medication for both, and I'm seeing a psychologist and a rheumatologist. What do I do with the papers? Do I submit individual forms for each one, or both on the same form, even though they're from different doctors?
CPP wants you to put everything on one form. So you would put both conditions on one form and you would treat it as one application. CPP doesn't distinguish between, they just look at your disability overall. They will want to know the causes of it, but if it's quite often that people have more than one cause of the disability. So this person has the depression and the fibromyalgia, very common combination. So you would include both of those. You may want to indicate which one's more like the predominant one, like which one is the most disabling or the primary, but you would put them both on one. It doesn't matter that they're different doctors. You would just put all the information in. Usually you would want one doctor to fill out a report that kind of discusses both. And usually these doctors will be talking back and forth. So you'd probably pick one doctor to fill out your form, usually your family doctor, and they could mention both the depression and the fibromyalgia. Now, then you could still put more information in from the fibromyalgia doctor and get that in there as well. But you would do one application. It's not a problem to do more than one. The only caution I would give here to people is once you get more than about 5 different medical conditions, there's a lawyer in the US, he's talked about this as well. He agrees that once you get beyond about 5 conditions, it starts to get confusing. You want to be careful. Part of one of your enemies in a case like this is confusion and volumes of information. And if you start having more than 5 conditions that are really causing the disability, you probably don't, number one, right? Some of them probably are just not the real cause of this disability. They're just sort of adding on. And it just will become too much. It'll become too overwhelming and there's no focus, right? So I would caution people if you're going to get over 5 conditions to really think it through and you might mention them, but you wouldn't like make them the centerpiece.
A family member of mine told me they received 2 to 15 weeks EI sickness for a total of 30 weeks. Is this possible?
They received 2 15 weeks for a total of 30 weeks. Is that possible? No, not really. I mean, it's possible, but it would have to be separated by a lot of time, right? So EI sickness pays out 15 weeks, but you have to have qualified by like 600 hours of work to qualify for that 15 weeks. And then after the 15 weeks is used up, if you want to have another round of EI, you have to go back to work and get the hours again. So it's not possible to tack 2 on one after the other like that. But we are in crazy times here. So there's a few things that could have happened. Maybe Service Canada made a mistake because they're all messed up with the bug that's going around and the disruption and all this. So maybe there was some mistake. I doubt it though. Number 2, it's more likely that the person moved maybe from getting EI sickness onto one of these other temporary benefits that were brought in for the bug here that's going on. And that could be it. So they may have got the CERB, the Canadian, I'm going to employ Canadian Emergency
Response benefit.
Yeah, that's it. So maybe it was that because those kind of mimic each other. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the person just transitioned to regular EI and they thought maybe they still think they're getting EI because you can transition from one to the other. That's probably what's going on there. One of those 3.
In a previous video, you stated the amount of CPP disability received that would be reduced dollar for dollar from long-term disability payment. If so, then why should someone on LTD apply for CPP disability?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we have an article on the website called Why You Should Apply for CPP Disability Even Though the Insurance Gets All the Money or something like that. So we firmly believe you should. So the reason you should do it is there's a couple reasons. Number 1 is it gives you a safety net. Once you get CPP disability, that benefit is usually not going to go away most of the time. Long-term disability is not like that. They'll pull the rug out from under you at a drop of a hat. Like they'll come up with a reason, cut you off. You won't even see it coming. And then you're in a complete financial disruption. So if you've got the CPP disability going on, you've always got this, you got a little bit of a security blanket there that even if the LTD cuts off, you still got that money coming in. So that's number one. Number two, and probably the most important one, is that if you were out of the workforce and not receiving CPP disability, all of those years are going to count against you when your eventual CPP retirement is calculated. Okay. When they calculate the CPP retirement, they what they look at is your average income over your, I wouldn't even call it work life, but your average income up until age 65. So if you were chugging along and had a very high income up until the point you got disabled, and then for the last 10 years, you reported no income, all of a sudden your average income is going down. Think of all those zeros adding on, all those 10, you're going to have 10 years of zeros dragging down your average income. So what happens is if you apply for CPP disability and get approved, all of a sudden those 10 years disappear. They're not counted. So now instead of having an average income that includes 10 years of zeros, you'll have an average income that stops at the year where you had your last good year of earnings or whatever before you stop work. So you can see the big difference there, and that will result in a much higher CPP retirement. So that is the main reason you would want to do that.
And our very last question for this video, it is, would you kindly explain QPP disability?
QPP, okay. Mm-hmm. QPP is the Quebec Pension Plan Disability. So how it works in Canada is every province except for Quebec falls under the CPP disability plan. That's Canada's federal pension plan. Quebec has its own plan called the QPP. So if you were a resident of Quebec or the last time you worked and made contributions was through Quebec, even if you then moved, but you haven't worked since you moved, then you have to apply through the Quebec pension plan for your QPP disability, not the CPP disability. The benefits are roughly equivalent, although I'm not an expert on the QPP at all, but my understanding is that it is basically the same. It's just administered by a different body. So it may not run as smoothly, I guess what I could say, or it may run better. Certainly there's a lot of issues with Service Canada, but it's going to be hard for someone to run as smoothly as the Social Security Tribunal is right now. So, but that would be it. So the processes would be a little bit different. The forms would be different. The experience of going through it will be different because it's completely different systems, but the benefits are roughly equivalent. Now, you don't have a choice. Like they will determine. So if you are living in Quebec and you've only ever paid in through living in Quebec, then you absolutely have to do it. If you have moved from Quebec and have not worked, so if the last time you made any contributions was to the QPP, you've never paid into the CPP, then you would have to go back and apply through that, even though you're living outside of Quebec. Now, I think if you live in Quebec and work there like all your life and then move somewhere else and worked a little bit, I think then, as long as your most recent contributions were to the CPP, I think you could apply through the CPP, even though the bulk of your things would be through the QPP, and they just would kind of reconcile it. But
cool. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button.
Smash that like button.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notifications so that you can see our video every time we post, see our new videos every time we post. Also, leave your comments down below if you want us to do this again. We love answering your questions. This is kind of like a light version of our webinars that we do every week. So if you're interested in actually joining our webinars and talking to us personally, sign up for our newsletter at our website. I will put a link for somewhere on the screen and down below.
Yeah, well, we'd love to see you on those. We do those every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we basically just take open questions. So we only invite people who are on our newsletter list, or email list. But it's not hard to do. You can unsubscribe if you don't like it, but I think you'd like it. We have a lot of fun on those webinars.
We sure do.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. So guys. We will see you next time.